my friends. Well, today we're going to talk about insulation and condensation and how to best insulate a van. I recently came across a website, which I'll link in the comments section, or the description, I should say, that does a very good job of explaining the best way to insulate a van. And it's the blog faroutride.com. And they explain exactly what the problem is and how to deal with it. So they basically are on the same kind of wavelength that I am, and they're reaffirming what I already know. So I thought it would be good to revisit this topic. So first of all, big part of the problem with living in a van is moisture. Depending when you're living, if you're living in Arizona or Southern California when it's really hot, not such an issue. But up in the Pacific Northwest or Vancouver, BC, where I live, it is a big issue. So, where does moisture come from? Well, it comes from us breathing, humans breathing, or if you have a pet breathing. It comes from cooking. That adds a lot of moisture into the air. And it might come from, like, if you're drying some laundry, like if you have a towel that's wet, or if you came out from outside and your jacket is wet and that moisture is evaporating off your clothing, that's adding to moisture. So in addition to that, another big one, potential big source of moisture, is heat. When I say heat, I mean unvented heaters. Like the big one, of course, is the Mr. Buddy heaters. They're huge contributors of moisture. Something like 450 milliliters per hour, which is like almost a half a liter from like a Buddy heater. So the solution to that is to try to use either a vented heater, like the Propex or Webasto style, or the Dickinson Newport P9000. Those are vented as well. Justin Incredible used to have one of those in his door of the Explorer van. And then another really good way to draw out your van is by using a wood stove. Now, there's all pros and cons involved in using any of those, so proceed at your own risk. So yeah, moisture is a big problem. Essentially, moisture and condensation are inevitable. And let's talk about a vapor barrier for a second. I don't agree with vapor barriers. I'm gonna be taking a stand on that issue. See, the thing with insulation and insulating a van is there's some controversy in this whole van community about how to insulate properly, and some people say, "Oh, you got to use a vapor barrier." And then there's some people that say, "No, you shouldn't use one," and I'm on the side that says, "No, you shouldn't." And the reason is because moisture is inevitably gonna get into that cavity where you're trying to insulate. And if you have a vapor barrier, for example, if you're driving and you use plastic sheathing to create a vapor barrier, eventually that's going to wear out. There's going to be friction points, and you're going to get little tiny cuts, and moisture is going to get in. One of them is when you're putting the vapor barrier up and you're putting your furring strips and you're screwing stuff in, there's a chance you're going to pierce that plastic, or however you want to do your vapor barrier, and you're gonna have moisture in there. So although a vapor barrier in some ways is a good idea, the main reason not to do it is because moisture is inevitably going to get in there, and it can get in, but it can't get out as easily. So the better thing to do is not use a vapor barrier and let it breathe. Let air get to it and when air can get to it, it's going to more likely dry out. So, what are some options for insulation? Well, there are a number of different options. One that you should definitely not use, it's basically the worst thing you can use, is the stuff that you see in the attics, the puffy fiberglass insulation that's like this thick. That stuff, there's two reasons not to use it. Number one, it will get moldy and it'll absorb moisture. I should say that the other way around. It will absorb moisture and get moldy. Number one, for sure. Number two is fiberglass is little tiny shards of fiberglass. And you're inevitably going to breathe that in, and it gets embedded in your lungs, and it can cause some health problems. So, so don't use fiberglass. Another one you shouldn't use is, that I see some people using, is denim insulation. It's natural and it's good that way, and it doesn't have those little particles flying in the air, so it's healthy. Problem is, it also absorbs moisture. So I recommend not using that. Rock wool is one that I am seriously considering because it's moisture resistant, but there is a little bit of conflicting things that I'm reading. Some people say definitely it's fine to use. Other people say it can absorb moisture over time, and it also has some air particulate concerns. The best thing to use is Thinsulate. It's very it's hydrophobic, which means it will not absorb moisture, and therefore it can't get moldy. And it will conform to curves and stuff just like those other things will, and there's no air particulates. The biggest problem with Thinsulate is that it's so expensive. It's like 50 linear feet is something like $600 US, and you need like a minimum of 50 linear feet. So that's one option. Another option is polystyrene, and that's the pink rigid foam board. That's got a very high R value, and its downside is it's a little bit harder to work with. It doesn't conform to bends and stuff as easily. There's also polyiso. Polyiso has a little bit of a higher R value than polystyrene, but it doesn't have quite the same, not quite as good as a moisture resistant as a polystyrene. So on the faroutride.com website, they insulated their van with this product called Low Ease Cool. So low, letter E, then EZ Cool. And they use that in combination with Thinsulate. Low Ease Cool is like a foam core with foil on the outside. Problem with that stuff is there's no sticky back, so you'd have to apply some spray glue of some sort to apply it. So what I'm going to use is this stuff called Frost King on my next van, and Frost King is similar to the Low Ease, except that it's kind of like a yoga mat, closed cell foam. That's what you want, closed cell foam. But it has a sticky side. So those spots that are really troublesome, I'm gonna use that in all the difficult spots. So what I consider the difficult spots is where gravity is going to bring moisture down, like in the wheel wells, or not the wheel wells, the section by the wheel wells where it's like, here's the wall, and then there's a cavity there, and it's a big open area, but there's some large holes you got to contend with. I would stick it down there, and I would stick it basically all inside there. It is expensive. It's like up in Canada, it's like $40 for 15 feet by 12 feet. So it's pretty expensive. But it will conform well to the curves. And I'll probably use a combination of that and polyiso. I might even buy some Thinsulate. I haven't decided yet. I probably will. Now, some people say, oh, what about sheep's wool? Well, I won't use sheep's wool because I'm a vegan. And you can make fun of me and go, haha, that's stupid, blah, blah, blah. But I'm a vegan and I don't believe in hurting animals, and wool hurts animals. You can disagree with me, or you can have your reasons why you think that's not true, but anytime a profit is made off an animal, it will inevitably suffer. So I don't use sheep's wool. And the other one, what's another one I'm missing? So let's talk for a second about how to insulate. What you basically want to do is you want to remove air gaps as much as possible. Wherever there's metal, you want it to, here's the wall, here's the insulation, you want to push it right against it. And you don't want any metal exposed at all, because when that metal gets cold from the outside and warm air hits it, then you have condensation, moisture develops. So what you want to do is get rid of the air gap. And the reason I like the Frost King stuff, because it has an adhesive on one side and you can push it right against it and there's no chance of any air getting in there. Now, I love to use polystyrene or polyiso as much as possible because it's cheap and it's very moisture resistant, and it's really good in a lot of ways. But the problem is there's so many curves and obstructions in the way, it's going to take forever to cut little bits of polystyrene up and stick them in places. I may end up going that route, but I'm leaning towards the Frost King in combination with the other things. Now, Frost King, they're claiming a value, R value of 3, which is, I don't know if that's accurate. That's quite a high R value. The problem is there's no regulation for this. The companies can say whatever they want, and whether you believe it or not is up to you, I guess. Another thing you need to talk about regarding reducing condensation is ventilation. You need to, especially when you're doing things like cooking, you need to have a vent fan and suck out that moist air. And you need to, it's almost like you need to have ideally the best thing to do would be have to have 2 roof vents. One that'll suck air out and one that'll suck fresh air in. And that way you get a really good stream of fresh air. You really need to have lots of ventilation, especially like if you have a shower in your van, you better crank that thing up, because you're going to get all that moist air and you really need to get rid of it. Cooking, even breathing is a constant battle with the moisture, and you can't really 100% eliminate it unless you want to stop breathing, which is not really a feasible option. Anyways, guys, I just wanted to touch base on that topic again. It's really important. And I wanted to direct you to that website, faroutride.com. And like I said, I'll put a link in the description to exactly where to go. And they go into a lot of detail. They talk about insulating airplanes, and they have the same concerns as insulating a van. So the science there is pretty, it's been studied in detail by the people making airplanes and stuff. So I hope you find all that information helpful. There's a lot of stuff. I mean, I could make like 3 videos out of this, but I don't really want to. So there's a lot of information there. Go to that website, faroutride.com, and they go into more detail than I did in this video. And I wish you the best in insulating your van. Thanks for watching, and be well, my friends.